Hello, and welcome back to ARC. Today, we're covering everything included in the new Bombs Tall Tales update. Welcome back to the channel, guys. You heard it right. We are covering every single thing included in Steampunk Ascent, or also known as Bombs Tall Tales 2, the second update to the $30 DLC for ASA. I think we're going to kick this off by going ahead and looking at some of the cosmetics, first for player characters and then for structures. Now I have a row of dummies right here. They're going to help me show off exactly what we have. So for our first guy, we have a beret. It's a pretty basic one. It does have the double ribbon. I'm sure you've seen it in popular media. Then of course next we have the boater hat. If you want to channel your inner 1920s, this is the hat for you. It's got a nice little ribbon, or sash, I guess, wrapped around the top. Next we have the cyclist hat. This would be perfect for if we had bicycles in-game. Sadly, we don't. It could also be looked at as maybe some form of military cap, if that's what you're trying to style after. Then, of course, we have the steampunk hat and goggles. It seems to be an old aviator helmet or hat of sorts, combined with a pair of steampunk-esque goggles. Then, of course, we have normal goggles, or I guess goggles without the hat, just depending on how much of a mad scientist you're wanting to look, and or how much Edmund Rockwell you're wanting to channel. Then, of course, right here, we have the Dapper hat. Now, there are actually three varieties to the Dapper hat. There's the short Dapper hat, the medium Dapper hat, and the tall Dapper hat. These are all different sizes in the skin section, and so when you go to craft them, make sure that you are grabbing the correct one that you desire. To go with the Dapper hats, we have the Dapper outfit. This is every other part of your armor. It has a nice pair of dress shoes that are glitched into the platform, unfortunately. A nice pair of striped pants. A beautiful vest with a stopwatch coming out of it. And you can see right there, it has a nice little pendant that is reminiscent of the ARC logo itself, which I think is a fun little detail. And then we've got these very basic gloves. They're just supposed to be functional, I would guess. And that's the Dapper outfit. And then the last character skin that we have is the engineer outfit. This comes with the engineer hat and the rest of the outfit. You get some nice sturdy work boots to work in, something to protect your feet in the harsh workshop floor. Nice pair of sturdy pants with a good utility belt. A lot of space for tools. We have a big pair of gloves, with one side even having some mechanisms, there we go, attached to them. And then of course we have a pair of overalls that are from the pants into the chest. Has another nice big pocket. Got a neck covering, and then of course we have the engineer hat. Yeah. It's very newsy feeling. You could tell that I definitely stole some parts of it, and by some parts I mean most of it, for this current outfit. I just couldn't do the engineer hat. So that shows off our character skins for our armors. Now, with this one, they actually did include one creature saddle skin, and that is for the Rock Drake. The Rock Drake gets a steampunk skin. it looks really neat. It has a nice little fin. It has the steampunk-esque features on the side of the saddle. And of course, your rock drake gets goggles. Now his eyes will be protected no matter what area of aberration you go into. Of course, this does only apply to the base rock drake saddle, as you can see. If we go and equip a tech drake saddle, remove the skin, and I try to apply it to the tech saddle, unfortunately it won't allow us. So unfortunately that is just for the base rock drake saddle, but I'm sure that that won't be too much of a problem, especially as people get better rock drake saddle blueprints more and more. Next, and the last part of the skin section is the structure skins. Just like the first Bob Tall Tales update, this does provide a good variety of skins for various structures already existing in Ark, and can be a nice little feature to spice up your base, so to say. So we have some basic stuff right here. We have a triangle foundation and a square foundation. They both have some, I wouldn't say exposed pipe, but a pipe network. And it's got a wooden detail on top as well. We'll see this throughout the rest of this setup right here. Now, the walls, unlike the Frontier walls, have two different sides to them. They have this nice wood and green wallpaper aesthetic on the inside, but then on the outside is a much harsher metal, ornate gold kind of thing with just a touch of that green to tie together. Now, moving on from walls, we also have the doors. The doors look really good. They have the rotating gears on them, and we're in an earthquake. The doors have rotating gears on the outside, as you could tell. It even has a porthole that you can look through, theoretically. And we have all the different varieties of the doors here. That's the tall narrow. That is the true tall. And for whatever reason, this one doesn't have its skin on anymore. Let's go ahead and change that. There we go. And this is the double door. Again, it is similar to the other ones we've looked at. It's got a bank vibe, an ornate bank vibe going on there. Close that. That actually leads us to the sloped wall right here. As you can see, just like the previous structures, it has that nice green wallpaper on the inside, and then a much more rugged steel construction on the outside. One thing I did miss right here is the window. It has a nice little window area right here for you to look through. That's about the only glass you might be able to have though. Let's go ahead and actually install a window in here. I think that is the wrong one. Let's go ahead and make a door. Alright, so we've been able to apply that. And so this is the only unfortunate glass piece that you will get in this DLC. All of the other components do not include glass, but it is nice that they actually added this little touch you could see through. It's got similar visibility to the Frontier's glass, but that can be applied to full walls instead of just a window frame, basically. Moving on, we have your standard dinosaur gate. This thing looks wicked. It's honestly probably one of my favorite designs out of the skins. It has these tall posts that have a nice illumination on top of them. Lots of ornate steampunk details. And of course, it again echoes that on the other side. It looks like it is actually mirrored on both sides. but that just gives you a nice bit of symmetry in your base when using them. Now, we looked at our 1x1 walls. If we look at our large wall, you could see it looks exactly like 4 walls stacked on top of each other. There's nothing new or interesting about this that we haven't already seen from over there. Now, one thing that is slightly interesting with walls is the quarter walls. The quarter walls from the outside are basically just pure metal. They don't have a ton of detail, and they only keep really that tinge of bronze color on there of the aged copper. There we go. Just like the Statue of Liberty. Now we also have guardrails right here, which gives this nice wrought iron look. It's very ornate. I've been using it a lot in my builds. It's a really fun feature to have to really add to the diversity of the various railings and railing skins already in game. Towards the end, we also have here a pillar. The pillar almost has a cylinder vibe to it. It has a mechanism built into the middle of it, and then of course very ornate wood texturing on the top and bottom with some gold and metal inlays up and down the middle. Over here we have a ladder. This ladder is also a lot like the guardrail and can work well in your base with it. It's got that wrought iron detailed look and aspect to it, and I think honestly it is one of the better skins that we've had, especially for the ladder. Lastly, we have the ceilings. From the top, the triangle and square ceilings look exactly the same as their foundation counterparts. The only difference I've been able to observe is of course the underside that we can't see on foundations. And we do have a couple of more items over here. Here we have a table that has been steampunked. It looks like it could rotate, stand up. It looks like it can move, which I really like the detail they've put into it. It makes a normal table stand out so much more. We also have a normal bench. It has lots of metal details. It looks comfier for sure. Up here we have a chair that has been steampunked. I guess steampunk chairs all are really cool old office chairs, I guess. Unfortunately, you can only apply these skins to their original versions. You can't apply them to other tables, chairs, benches, etc. Only the default ones already provided via the base game of Ark. Lastly, we just have a couple more features. Here we have a pair of stairs. It's again got that metal going on hardcore with the gold outlines and the nice solid metal to walk up as a supporting base. Next to it we have a roof. It's very ornate. Again, it's got that really Statue of Liberty color going on right there. Here we have a steampunk ramp. This they just went full throttle on. They laid as much gold into it as possible. I think it looks really nice. It gives a unique response to ramps versus a lot of the ones that we've seen that are already pretty basic. Over here we have a round or spiral staircase. You can see this one doesn't make it a lot more square, and then of course it gives a lot of the same energy as this staircase right here, but removes that background structure of metal and allows you to see through the slats. The very last structure skin I could think of to apply was this cellar or hatch door. You can see this hatch door looks very, very similar to the dinosaur gate over here. And of course that is pretty much it. It is very basic. Speaking of this gate though, there is one last item to look at, and that actually is the behemoth version of it. This one does change up the design just a touch and further adds to it, making the actual gate part much more behemoth, mind the pun, and much more fundamental. It's much more built in. But with that, that will be all of the skins in the new DLC. Now, the next part that we're going to cover is the creatures, in quotations, that were added along with this update. We've actually already covered one on a previous video. We've already covered Cosmos. Now you can see the little Cosmos on my shoulder. And just as a brief overview, Cosmos is your Spider-Man web slinger. You can grab onto things and use control and I believe space? No, control and shift to move up and down that line. Of course, he does have a limited shot count that goes up as you upgrade his charge and as you have better and better level Cosmos. He also does have a shooter mode that can stun and slow down creatures. Again, we showed that off in the previous video about all the light pets and aberration, if you want to check that out. The bigger, more interesting addition is Sir-5RM8, or Survivor Mate for short. I really called him that. Voiced by Alan Tudyk, this little robot is really helpful around your base, and we're gonna go over his various modes.
The user's friend. Still surviving.
As you can tell, he is voiced by Alan Tudyk. He has many different lines. He actually has 4 modes: Follower, Butler, Repair, and Harvest. We're going to start with Follower.
I'll be right behind you.
As you can tell, Follower is just a simple follow command. He will glow green when he is in follower mode. Let's bring him over here. Oh, he's having issues. You can tell him to stop just like any other dino. Nice. And if he's ever in a spot that you don't like or don't want him in, you can just pick him up. And then we can put him back down. There we go. The next mode I want to show off is the Butler mode. You can go into wherever you need something, and you can either tell him to take stuff out of a certain location with automated withdrawal. You can enable or disable it. You can also tell him that you want a certain resource in a certain storage structure of some variety. If you right click that item and either have it already added or add as input and how many stacks that you are wanting in here. So we're just going to say the 1 stack of stone for now. And I'm going to go over and give him this stone. And as that is the only place he knows stone will go, I will put that in there, and he should go over and run right over to the vault. And as you can see, automatically puts that stone in there for us. So you can get home from farming materials, and if you already have it set up, he can go and immediately run and put that stuff up for you without you having to sort it. You can also tell him to sort items between things. As far as I can tell, he does have a weight limit, and it's not very high, but if you are careful, he can be a useful addition to sorting your stuff out. The next mode we have is the Repair mode. This mode, unlike the purple mode of the Butler, is red, and he can repair any structure that is broken in your base, provided he has access to the materials. So currently we are missing fiber, but we're going to go ahead and change that. if we go ahead and give him that fiber, if I could find it, there it is, he should be able to go target this wooden wall and repair it.
That's a job well done.
There we go.
Well, good enough.
As far as I'm aware,
Well done ahead of schedule.
as far as I could tell, this does work on all structures. He just needs to be able to either pull out the resources and or have them already in his inventory. Now lastly, he has the harvest mode.
Hard labor, is it?
That is, of course, dictated by the color yellow. Harvest mode.
Labor, is it?
I've told him to find thatch.
Good to me.
Where are you going? As you can see, Sir collects the various resources for you. Let's go ahead and remove both of those items as an input, and off he goes. I'm not sure exactly where he's running off to now that he's been told not to do anything. After you tell him not to collect any more resources, he will go back to wherever you initially placed him and wait for your next command.
The user's friend. Still surviving?
Now, this docking pad can be used to summon him at any time. You can also track him to show where he is, and we can see the range that he's allowed to get away from the docking pad. It is a pretty substantial range, but it can be quite useful.
User at least most of
And
the
there he is. And of course, whatever purpose you are complete with him, you can just go ahead and pick him up. I do apologize for the freezing spores, but that does cover both creatures included with this DLC. Now that we're a good bit into the DLC features, one of the things I really like is the couple of equipable, usable items that you can actually have as part of the DLC. One we'll talk a little bit more about in depth is the gene scanner. We'll talk about that with the structures included with this DLC. But one of the main things that you can use outside of those features is opening it and tracking a various creature. I can go ahead and select Ankylosaurus and use the markers on the side of the gun to actually see where that creature is and head in that direction. If I were to follow the arrows, which both sides lighting up green means that it is in that direction you're pointing. Yellow means that you need to go more that direction, and red means you're even farther off and just need to turn hard. The other thing that we have is the goo gun. The goo gun shoots two different modes, or has two different modes, and is fueled by harvesting the bodies of dinosaurs. Currently, there is two modes to this gun. There is a purple goo. This is a stopping goo. It is supposed to stop you quite literally in your tracks, you or any enemy combatant. As you can tell, I've been gooped. The goop seems to act similar to a Dilo's acid or spit, where it slows you down and causes a temporary blindness effect. The other mode that you can switch to by simply reloading is a goo that when you shoot it out and throw it, you back up and boom, it throws you a very good distance, and especially if you get a running start, can throw you upwards and forward. If you throw it out and then quietly step on it, it still yeets you pretty far forward, but running can give you a little bit extra momentum. Again, with this one, you just refill its ammo by collecting dead dinos by harvesting their corpse. Now, we only have one more item to look at before we look at structures, and that is the stopwatch. As you can tell, this is just a normal looking stopwatch. Even reminds me of the compass per se from Survival Evolved. Now, if I go ahead and do this, I not necessarily move, but I traveled back in time. If you are being chased, if you are just wanting to get the lead on a dino or another player, or are you wanting to extract yourself out of a bad situation just by a few seconds, this can be a really handy tool. Unfortunately, it does have a 180 second cooldown, and so you do have to contend with that, and the more you use it, the more durability is taken away from the stopwatch. It does also take black pearls, but we are on Aberration, where black pearls can be found in spades right along the Element River in the red zone. Lastly, I want to talk about the bread and butter of this DLC, which is the various structures that it adds. Not skin structures, but the actual physical unique structures that are included. We're going to start off with the clock face. This is, as it says, a giant clock face. Now, the unique thing about this is that it can actually boost different crafting structures within your base, and you can tell it which one you want to boost in particular. Please note that when you put this down, it does have a 8-hour cooldown before you're actually able to apply that boost. Since I'm showing you guys this on my single player save, I unfortunately have not had this going long enough to show you that boost. Otherwise though, this can be used as a great decoration and just a nice centerpiece of any build that you're going for, especially if it is steampunk themed. Next up, we have the Embryo Incubator. Any of you that have played Ark Survival Evolved might be familiar with the Egg Incubator, which this will work quite similarly to that. The Embryo Incubator is used to take embryos that you harvest from your breeding dinos, and you are able to place these embryos inside of this incubator, and it will incubate them for you instead of having to wait for that tamed creature to gestate. That allows your tamed creatures that give live birth more time to actually breed and less time to sit there and gestate. The main thing that you use in collaboration with the Embryo Incubator is, you guessed it, the gene scanner. You can go up to any pregnant female creature and just stab it. If she's pregnant and has an embryo ready for you, you can use the gene scanner to extract that embryo, and then of course you can place it into the Embryo Incubator. Now please note, any embryos that would normally hatch underwater would have to be hatched from an embryo incubator placed underwater. Otherwise, the incubator won't allow you to actually hatch them. In addition, just like the egg incubator from Survival Evolved, you can select an embryo to destroy it if it isn't what you were looking for, or if it has been fully incubated, you can hatch it directly out of the machine. This is a nice handy way to actually see the stats of that embryo and get rid of it if it doesn't match, so that way you're not burning through so many dinos just trying to get the ones that you want. Now, another thing that the gene scanner relates to heavily is gene storage. The gene gun allows you to access any dino with a trait. Now, that will be any wild creature that you have tamed since the Aberration update went live for ASA. Any of those creatures will have a trait applied to them in the wild that they will keep after taming. For example, my rock drake here has the trait Oxygen Robust. Traits have 3 different levels, with 1 being the most common, 2 being uncommon, and 3 being the rarest. You can hit your extended info button to show exactly what the Oxygen Robust or trait does. So for my rock drake here, it says that this creature's offspring has a 2.25% chance to inherit the higher oxygen stat of its parents. So overall, this stat would be really good if I was wanting to breed a rock drake with a higher oxygen stat, or more easily guarantee that stat. So that can be really helpful. There is a variety of these traits on all manners of creature, not just rock drakes, but they are species specific. I can only use this rock drake trait on fellow rock drake babies. You cannot apply them to adults, and you can take them from adults by stabbing them and selecting dream trait options. But if I do so, it will tell me that I am removing it from my adult creature, and if I tried to put it back, it won't let me. It says target must be baby, and so if I was to apply that to any other rock drake, it would have to be a baby that I hatched. Now, any traits that you go and pick up, you can take back to your gene storage, select gene trait options. You can already see I have one from a Featherlight in here. I'll throw in my rock drake trait, and there we go. I have those 2 traits stored away. Now, if this rock drake was not a good level, if it was a wild one that I had found, hatched, and decided I no longer wanted to keep, I could get rid of it, as it no longer pertains to have that trait. Then, of course, you can stack up to 5 different traits onto one dinosaur. And the gene storage can hold up to 200 different traits. You can, of course, build multiple of these. So depending on how heavily you're breeding a creature, you might want to build each one specific for that creature. Next up over here, we have the Industrial Preserving Bin. As the name suggests, it is a preserving bin, but industrial. It uses the exact same formula of spark powder, oil, and gasoline. It can also be powered by a generator nearby, but we simply just need to get some meat cooked. Whatever meat that you put in there, whether it be normal meat or prime meat, does have to be cooked before you actually input it into the preserving bin. And so we're going to give that just 1 second to cook. There we go. All we need is 1 for now. We turn on our preserving bin, drag that over, and as you can see, there starts to cook our meat into cooked meat jerky. It does have a little progress bar to display where exactly it is in that progress, and that is basically the industrial preserving bin. Pretty simple concept, just nice to have a slightly faster option available to us. It's a little bit more rugged as well. The next item up on the docket is going to be pretty nice feature for any kind of crafters, especially of blueprints. This is the library storage structure. This is very, very similar to the blueprint locker or blueprint shelf in the S Plus mod from Survival Evolved. This allows you to store up to 100 different blueprints in each library storage, and you can build several of these. You aren't limited, so you can have all of your blueprints finally in their own unique structure and not just tucked away in a random vault. Now, one additional bonus to the library storage is you can actually use this library storage and connect it to other structures. Over here we have our fabricator, If we access this crafting structure, you can see that we have blueprint sharing as an option now. I can go ahead and show the connections. And as you can see, I've already connected this library storage over to this fabricator. That means any blueprints that we have in here, such as this arrow, we can go over to the fabricator, and if we type in arrow, boom, there we go. Typically we wouldn't be able to make the trank arrow in the fabricator, but because it's in our library storage, and that now gives us access to. Unfortunately, you can only connect one library storage to one structure, or more so, you can only have one structure connected to a library storage. Unfortunately, I can't build two library storages and have them both connected to this fabricator, but I can have up to 20 unique structures connected for the blueprint sharing to one single library storage. So if you want to have all of your various base structures that you craft items in connected, that is one possible method. Just as easily as you can connect them, you can remove that connection. As you can tell, there we go. Now those two are no longer connected. So as you can see, the trank arrow is no longer an option as they are separated. Moving on from the library storage, we have the linked storage box. This can be a handy little feature. We can go ahead and access the inventory. As you can see, there is nothing in here. I'm going to go ahead and put what few blue gems I have in here. And now let's go check out the other linked storage box I have set up. I put nothing in here beforehand. This is exactly as it is supposed to be. And look at that. We have our 4 blue gem that we just put in the other linked storage. Unfortunately, you can only put so many linked storages in one area at the very least. It only allows you to put up to 4 linked storages in this area. And as you could tell, a linked storage box does need to be powered by a local generator and takes 5 minutes to power on. This is very similar to the cryo fridge changes that Ark has implemented into the base game. This can be a nice little feature, especially if you have a linked storage box set up where you typically farm metal. You can put that metal in there, get up to your base without having to worry about carrying it around, and then pull that metal out right next to your industrial forge or whatever variety forge you possess, and there we go. Speaking of forges, we have a new one. This is the Steam Forge. It is unfortunately powered by element, but if we go ahead and get some metal for it to smelt, we can turn on the mighty power of the Steam Forge. Go ahead and feed it the hungry metal, and we'll be able to watch how quickly it smelts that metal. We initially put 100 metal in there. It's already smelted all 100 metal. This is a pretty good upgrade. If you already have a bank of industrial forges, this may not be the choice for you, but if you are in game and you are wanting a little bit better option, it is pretty nice to have. Unfortunately, it is one of the more expensive items. It requires minty-based electronics, polymer, crystal, and metal ingots. But of course, if you have element, you should be able to afford those resources if possible. Next up is the Spotlight. Spotlight is a fun decorative item, more so than crafting or truly structural. It shines, you guessed it, a big light. The light can be adjusted in terms of its brightness. so that way you don't necessarily blind whoever or whatever you're pointing it at. Of course, as you turn up the brightness, more of it shows. It covers an impressive area and has a lot of luminosity. It can be adjusted via the radial wheel, where you can change the orientation, or you can also mount the spotlight and move it to wherever you need to, and even look at yourself. You can also use a paintbrush and draw on the front of this, including things like the Batman symbol. Please note though that if you do, anything that you write or draw on there is going to be reflected backwards, so take mind of that before you add anything onto the spotlight. Moving on from said spotlight, we have the tinkering desk. The tinkering desk is where you can actually go ahead and combine blueprints. There is two methods of combining blueprints in this desk. There is a stable combine, where you will always get a blueprint rewarded to you from whatever you put in, but it will only have a small bonus, or will be a good bit worse than the average of the blueprints you put in. This could be useful if maybe you're wanting to have a similar quality blueprint but not nearly as expensive. I could see that as a possible option. Another method that you can use is the unstable combine method. This does have a 25% success rate, which means that 75% of the time, all the blueprints that you put towards the combined blueprint will cease to exist. Now, if you do this, it will always have quality equal to the average quality of the component blueprints. This can be, of course, worth it. It just depends on what blueprints you are applying and what your end goal is. Now here we have the Tesla coils. The Tesla coils seem to be a new defensive structure, just like Plant Species X. They have 3 modes. They have this mode, which has all of the coils down at the bottom. This mode is called Charged. Then we have another coil over here. It has most of the coils up towards the top with 1 at the bottom. This mode is Bright. And then we have our third Tesla coil here with all coils at the top. This mode is Volatile. You can tell by where the coils are on the defensive structure what mode it is in, so that is pretty useful to be able to determine for PvP. These can be a very good base defense, but they do require crystal in its inventory. The Tesla coils seem to use the crystal as bullets, just as a regular turret would. These can be pretty fun to use, especially if you chain a whole set of them together overall. They seem to be pretty fun to use, especially if you chain a whole set of them together overall. One thing I did forget to mention almost is the various lights that we have. This is the ground steam light, which can be its light intensity can be controlled. This does differ from the lights provided in the Frontier pack that actually do not have varying light degrees, unfortunately. But if we go ahead and pull the lights out of our inventory, there's actually 4 different types, which include the ceiling steam light. This can be applied on ceilings and walls. The wall steam light, and the desk steam light. I could turn this one on. It is one of those globes that if you touch with your fingers, it lights up exactly where you touch. Fun little addition, especially for decoration. Then we have the ceiling steam light. This reminds me of a steampunk or Victorian version of the tech light, which is a fantastic addition. I love having tech lights in my base, so this will be really useful to have attached to ceilings. Just make sure that you bring a ladder. And the last light type we have is the wall steam light. This one, of course, is a wall fixture. It is very similar to the Frontier version, except that it, of course, can control its light intensity, just like every other version that we've just looked at. It's a nice little addition and helps to light up your base in a bit better light than the previous light additions. Now, there's one elephant in the room that I haven't talked about for structures. As you can see in the background, we have a Zeppelin. It flies now. You can go ahead and hop on it just by being close to it, or if you need to, you're already hovering, you have a crewmate up here, you can extend these flying ladders, or these ladders as a whole, and climb up them and mount up that way. You can put foundations on the actual craft as well, as you can see. It seems to be a 2x3. That's pretty much all you're going to get out of it, with still being able to access the actual Zeppelin. Unfortunately, if we look at the Zeppelin, it does have a pretty low weight of 1,800 pounds and only 20,000 health. But on the plus side, it is also powered just by gasoline, so it's pretty cheap to actually run. Now, of course, the big selling point of this is the fact that it flies. This provides us an alternative means to actually get around aberration, especially if you don't yet have a rock drake. If you can afford this first, this could be your first base and or a base that you're transitioning on in the air. Now, this of course is its walking mode. It does have a sprint mode where it turns those motors into overdrive. And if you use your alternative attack buttons, you can actually tell it to descend or ascend without having to awkwardly look up or down. So a nice little feature that I actually just found out experimenting today. This is a great little addition, especially to all the various other structures. It's overall pretty cheap to make, as you can see. It only requires a small bit of electronics, a small bit of metal, some wood, a good bit of fiber, and a small amount of polymer. If you're needing polymer, a pro tip I can advise is killing and harvesting the Carcanos, or the giant crabs, on aberration with a chainsaw. The chainsaw is a Scorched Earth DLC blueprint, but should be available to everyone, with Scorched Earth being free. That chainsaw can give you quite a good bit of organic polymer and chitin. That, of course, the organic polymer can be used in substitute of normal polymer. But that covers all of the structures included in this DLC. I hope that you learned a thing or two about this DLC. Maybe you even pick it up. Right now, for the whole package, which includes Tall Tales 1 and 2, it is $30. But when Extinction comes out, we will get the third and final update to the DLC, and that will be a Mad Mask-esque vibe. But with that, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to see more ARC videos from me, please let me know. And thank you so much. Bye.